channel. In this video, we are gonna take a look at a budget-friendly church plant portable setup. I'm excited to dive into this video. If you are a church plant or thinking of planting a church, it's a good idea for you to see all the tech that's usually involved for a setup like this, and also some ideas on how you can further streamline a setup. Maybe you're already a church plant and you're doing this. I share a lot of tips and tricks throughout this video that we've learned doing larger installs that you can actually still apply to smaller installs like this. It's gonna save you a ton of time, money, and headache. If we haven't met yet, my name is Jake Gosselin with Churchfront.com. We're here to be your roadmap for worship and production ministry. If you wanna work with our team directly, we're pretty easy to get a hold of. Just go to Churchfront.com and click that apply page. We'd love to talk to you. And if you would like our list of our latest recommendations for our favorite gear, check out the Churchfront Toolkit linked down below. Our friend Karezz is gonna walk us through this setup. We know Karezz because he's been helping us on our installs. He was actually on the Churchfront crew waitlist. And if you wanna join that waitlist, you can check that out at churchfront.com/crew. If we have an install coming up near you, we can hit you up, and it's a great way for you to make some extra money lending us a hand on our next job. So without further ado, let's dive in.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Karezz Goggins. I am the worship and technical director here at Orbit Church. We are a new church plant. We've been alive for about a year now, having services for about a year, coming up here in February. It's kind of crazy. It's already been a year. Time flies by when you're having fun. What I wanted to do today is walk you guys through some of our tech setup, some of the stuff we're doing, show you guys some of the lighting, the audio, the video for Livestream, show you guys our LED wall, stuff like that, stuff that we're doing, some tips and tricks that we found to be helpful to help us set up fast on a Sunday morning with 100% volunteers here. We have no paid people here. Everybody's volunteered. And so I want to walk you guys through some of our tech setup. Let's go. Okay, so let's start with our front of house setup. We're using a Allen Heath SQ5. And then this rack right here is a Odyssey. I think it's a 20U rack, a 16 or 20U rack. And then,
okay, SQ5, still an amazingly powerful compact mixing console. And then this rack that they have, the only issue I have right now looking at this rack is it's so empty. There's so much rack space, just empty rack rails right there. They're just beckoning to have something in them, whether that's equipment that could be racked in there. I think we'll talk about that later. It could be maybe some blank panels. It could be some shelves, maybe some drawers for storage. You can always put rack space to use.
What we have in here is we have our SQ5 up top. We have our Furman power thing right here. And then we have some rechargeable batteries. These are the Bonnet 2800 amp hours. These work really well for us. We're using those for our vocal microphones and our inner monitors. For our pastor, we use just real Amazon batteries. We just don't want that pack to die. But up top, what we're using is Allen Heath SQ5. You can see it's been kind of scratched up a little bit. But this is our main front of house soundboard. And then I'm going to show you guys kind of the whole path here. Coming out the back, we have speaker right and speaker left. And then we have our S-Link cable right here. Coming out in all three of these cables. So the two XLRs and the S-Link cable run to the stage. This white cable right here is our network cable for our SQ4U app, for our vocalists and stuff like that to mix their inner monitors and band. This black cable is a USB cable that goes over to our broadcast mix. I'll show you that here in a second. And then these are just headphone cables and then talk back mic for our front of house. And so what happens is, forgive the mess over here, guys. What happens is these three cables come out of this board, the ones that go to the stage, and they come into this black loom right here that we got off of Amazon. Also, too, inside of this black loom is one SDI cable. This goes to our LED wall from our deck link, from our quad deck link duo thing. And so they go into this black loom. That way, those four cables will have to go to the front or go to the stage every single week. And we didn't want to have to run four separate cables, so we came up with the idea to go ahead and throw those in a loom.
Okay, let's talk about some other solutions here. So I saw you have two XLR cables for your speaker, your main left-right outputs going to your speakers. Why not pull those outputs from the stage box instead of from back here at front of house? because you can obviously send that audio signal over the S-Link cable that you already have in this loom that's going back to the stage box. Then you output from the stage box to the speakers, which should be closer and it should be less cable to have to run. I think in a portable setup like this, and it kind of can vary depending on where you want to put your computers, but you should only have to run S-Link, just a network data line, and then your video line makes sense as well, because you have to get video from your video switcher or your deck link output to your processor, which we'll see later is on stage. Back in the day when I was a worship leader at a setup and tear down church plant and we're running cables everywhere, I wish I would have known about products like this. Whirlwind makes these multi-pair cables. So here's one where you have 4 different data cables that are loomed together in one. Then you have Cat6 cable and analog cable. And again, it really depends on the design. Like, what are you trying to fit in these cable looms to run them from one place to another? But just remember that if you're like maybe making sub snakes or you're making your own custom snakes, you can look at these products by Whirlwind, and you can have multiple data and mic line cables running in the same basically trunk.
And so those 4 cables go to the stage. Another cable that we've recently added to this setup that I will put in this black loom as soon is this Cat cable, and this right here is running our Ableton network.
So that's another Cat cable, but again, I think if you get a solid, I would just probably get a shielded Cat6 cable that runs from a front of house network switch to your stage network switch. Then you just have one cable. You really could have, again, S-Link, network, maybe one video run, and it could really streamline the amount of cables you're having to run up there.
Session, and that goes to the stage as well, so I have to add that to this black loom. And so let's come over here for Livestream audio, and I'll show you that. So it comes out of that black USB or that black USB cable over there, and it goes over here into this little dongle, and then it goes into my computer, which we're running Ableton Live on. And so we go input, so go to settings, and you go to input. It's going to be your SQ, so your Allen Heath SQ. Then your output is going to be your Scarlett interface. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring in your SQ5 sound into your computer, and it's going to send it out to your SQ. And so this is going to allow you to be able to monitor your live stream mix live. That way you can have just the best mix possible. A little trick, something that we noticed right here, what's going to control. So this monitor is going to control your overall volume coming out of the Scarlett. And so we just leave that all the way up, and then your headphone right here. And then it's going to come out of the Scarlett into your ATEM switcher. And that's how we're doing live stream audio.
You might not be surprised, right here I would recommend using a Dante audio network. The Allen & Heath SQ does have a slot for a Dante card. So instead of sending audio over the USB port, instead of having to use so many analog audio connections, you can just have everything connected into a local area network. It can be the same network that you're controlling devices on as well, especially in a more compact environment like this. When we're doing larger installs, we like to separate Dante into its own virtual local area network from other control virtual local area networks, or VLANs, to keep everything kind of isolated, and you'll probably run into less issues that way. But here, I think just having a robust network infrastructure, I'd recommend a UniFi router with UniFi switches, and then you're going to be able to use the Dante network with all these computers in your console. And then even for getting audio into Ableton, it's going to be multi-track Dante audio going in, and then the outputs. You can use the Dante AVIO adapters. So I'm a huge fan of these adapters here. You can use the analog output ones, go from a network cable into a headphone amp, and then someone can monitor that live stream mix. And then you can use another analog output adapter to go into the video switcher. And then we can get rid of the long USB cables. We can get rid of this audio interface. Dante does cost money, but it also saves you money on these other devices that you won't need.
Audio. So let's head to the stage, and I will show you guys our PA system setup.
While we're talking about all these ideas for gear upgrades here at Orbit Church, I did want to mention Churchfront Premium. It is our subscription service that gets you access to all of our online courses where you can learn all of the best practices about what I'm talking about. And it also gets you access to Churchfront Express Design Service. So if you have an upgrade coming up for a smaller project where you're trying to optimize systems, much like what we're talking about in this video, you can actually connect with a member of the Churchfront team, and we will guide you through the process, and we can put the order together for you, and we'll also fulfill that order for you. So if you're looking to buy gear and you want to support Churchfront and the work we do to help churches, you might as well go ahead and purchase that gear through Churchfront, and then we can support you in that deployment and install process as well.
Real quick, as you guys can see, that black loom that I was talking about, it comes all the way from around our pipe and drape, and it comes back here, and it just goes all the way up to the stage. So it's a long run. And then on the other end of that, we have the XLR cables that come out and go to house left and then house right. And so I'll show you the rest of that stuff on stage here. All right.
So the distance from the console to the speakers versus this stage box of speakers, it's probably not that much shorter either way. It kind of looks like it's the same. So I can see why those XLR cables came from front of house.
Oh, that S-Link cable, the SDI cable, and
see, these are the outputs I'm talking about on the stage box that you could send to the speakers.
the two microphone cables, all four of those cables come to the stage. The S-Link cable gets plugged into our digital stage box, which is the GX 4816 by Allen and Heath. That's that S-Link cable. And so where you plug in all of our instruments, all of our microphones and everything like that come around into here. Our inner monitors come out on this rack as well, and they also go out through the S-Link cable. And so that right there is how we have that routed. And so as you can see right here, this is our stage rack. From the top down, we have our Furman. We have our ARF Venue Distro 9 for microphones. We're not using non-microphones yet, but hopefully one day we'll have more microphones added to our system. Come down a little bit more. We have our combined 8 for our inner monitors. We love this. Sorry, let me go back up. For our microphones, we're using the Sennheiser EWD digital system. We have 4 vocal mics, and our pastor mic is a dual handheld and lavalier pack. And so that's what we're using up here.
In our experience, Sennheiser EWD microphones, great microphones. Sennheiser, the XSW in-ear monitors, not so great.
That was a little bit more expensive to have the dual system, but our pastor from week to week switches. He's like, hey, I want to use a handheld. Hey, I want to use a pack this week, and so, or a headset mic this week. And so that's why we bought that, and we just went ahead and spent the extra money. But then we have 4 vocal mics. And so coming down, we have our combined 8 for our inner monitors, and we're also using the Sennheiser XSW inner monitor system. We love that. It's been solid for us. We haven't had any problems. There's a few times where some of our musicians will say, hey, I'm getting a little bit of static, and then we'll just adjust the frequency or the antennas, and then we're good. We really don't have any problem. Also, too, the SDI cable I mentioned up front that's coming from the deck link for our LED wall is coming into our VX400 Novastar, and so that's our video processor for the LED wall. And so that right there is our stage rack.
That stage rack is pretty great. Like I said, those XSWs, we've had issues with those in the past, even when you have an antenna combiner. So I would beware of that, especially if you're buying a lot of the XSW in-ear monitors. I would maybe use 2 or 4. Once you go beyond 4, that's when you're going to get that noise that he's talking about.
Rack. Also, too, real quick, we have our antennas.
These antennas, I would move at least 6 feet away from each other. That's another thing we've run into before, where if they're too close, they do cause problems. RF Venue does recommend keeping your antennas at least 6 feet away from one another.
Maybe you guys have a better placement idea for these antennas, but for us, honestly, it's worked really well. We just typically put them right next to each other. We'll fan them out a little bit, so this one will point a little bit more to the right, and this one will point a little bit more to the left. But these are our RF Venue antennas, and we just set those up really fast on a Sunday morning. Forgive the mess again. We just finished Christmas. Don't judge us too hard. But yeah, so that's our stage rack and our antennas. I'll walk you guys through some instruments and stuff like that next. So for our key setup, what we're doing here is we typically have the Sunday Keys app on an iPad. And then we're using this Arctura Keylab 88 key. It's got heavy weights. Our keys players like it. Only thing we're having a hard time with is sometimes the Sunday Keys app, even on a M1 iPad Pro, like our keys players, if they start playing really heavy, we'll have problems where it starts to lag. I'll try to put some videos in here of that as well and just try to load that in. But sometimes if they're playing too hard or too heavy, if they're putting too many notes together, the Sunday Keys app will start to lag. I don't know if that's a problem with Sunday Keys or if it's a problem with the iPad. We are up to date on the iPad. It's updated to the latest iOS. So I don't know if that's the problem, but just something to be aware of if you guys decide to go this route with the keys setup and the Sundays Keep app. We are looking to move that probably over to main stage here in the new year once the new budget comes in. But for now, that's what we're doing for keys.
I would test out the Sunday Keys setup with maybe a different piano MIDI controller, see if that also could resolve the issue. I haven't had any issues with the Sunday Keys app using the Studio Logic keyboard controllers. They always works great, never any latency, so I would consider that. I don't know about moving a main stage though, because I'm like, Sunday Keys is so much simpler to use for volunteers. It really produces, in my opinion, like 99% of the sounds that majority of worship keyboards would need. So main stage, to me, it's a little bit overkill for most church bands.
And how that's ran is we have this little dongle we have that goes USB-C into the iPad. Then we have the USB cable to the MIDI cable for the keyboard. And then we have a charger, then a headphone adapter that comes out into our DI box. And so that's how that runs right there.
My dream setup for a portable keyboard rig like this is just to have a laptop with Dante Virtual Sound Card running on it. So then you just have an Ethernet jack coming out of the laptop for your audio outputs, and that produces all the Sunday Keys sounds. And then you'll have to have a charging port. Maybe you could use like a Thunderbolt dock if somehow that could supply both the data and the charging connection to the laptop. But I would keep the laptop set up as lean as possible. And again, if you use Dante and everything's networked in the right way, it's going to really streamline the setup. You can get rid of the DI box and the USB dongles that we've got going here. Well, you're probably going to have some sort of USB connectivity from the keyboard itself to the laptop as well. So keep that in mind. And that's where I'm like, maybe you could have a cool compact like Thunderbolt dock situation where it's one plug into the computer.
We have our drum set. We don't have our other instrumentalists here, but we typically have a bass player, our MD and lead guitar player right here, acoustic player, bass player is typically over there, and then we have drums. And so we're running a Gretsch, I think Catalina set, and then this is our setup. We have 4 different drummers, so we're stacked with drummers, and so they all have a different setup. They all bring their different systems. The house cymbals are these K Customs dry series. We love them. They sound really good. And for our mics, we're using the Audix, I think Audix F2 system, and then we have a SM57 on the snare. I think we're using the SMB. What is this called? Oh no, that's knocked over. Don't tell the drummers. Oh, look, we got a lot of stuff knocked over back here. But we're using the Beta 57, I think. Sorry. So we're using the Beta 57 for the kick, and so that's what we're doing here. I don't know how all this stuff got knocked over. Probably some kids. Yeah, I'll fix that.
Acoustic drum set in a space like this, that's going to be pretty difficult to manage, but it sounds like they got some solid drummers. And the really important thing here in a space like this is to play to the room, make sure they're not overplaying. Those baffles you have might help a little bit with the cymbal bleed into the rest of the microphones on stage. But again, these drummers just can't be playing all out on this acoustic drum set in a room like this with a stage that's this small. My preference, if I were doing a church plant, would probably try to get some sort of electric kit. I know there's a lot of electric kit haters out there, but I think they've come a long way these days, and it's just so much easier to deal with when it comes to mixing it in with the rest of the band.
Yeah, I'll fix that. Real quick, Tracks World for Tracks.
Ableton Live. I miss Ableton. I've not used Ableton a lot lately because I'm not leading worship that regularly. I'm using the playback app at our church. It's really simple, easy to use, but I miss the Ableton days.
We're running Ableton Live again here, and then we have the Tracks Rig by Loop Community. Right now we're sending about 4 channels out of this every single Sunday. We love it, and so we have Ableton Live up here, and then that gets plugged in USB-C, and then we have a cat cable for our lyrics and light control. And so all that comes into the Tracks Rig by Loop Community.
Again, if we could get a solid network in place, one network connection could have the MIDI network control, Dante control, and then again, I think here's a good place to have a Thunderbolt dock where all of that connectivity goes into there, and then it can both charge and supply data to the computer. Maybe keep using this little rack thing, but the track rig, in my opinion, it's, you know, at this point, I think it's a little bit overkill. I think it is a great, robust way to send analog audio to like a stage box. It's nice that it comes with the USB hub. But again, I'm always going to go towards the more lean setup with the Dante network.
Only thing I wish they had with this thing was a cat cable or cat connection integrated onto it, so I could just plug a cat cable right into it, and then I didn't have to buy.
It's almost like they should make. It would be cool if the track rig could just become a Thunderbolt hub, like there's a Thunderbolt cable on it. So then you have a built-in audio interface. You've got maybe a data connection, like you just said. You got USB peripherals. That would be super awesome.
Adapter. So I don't know, little community, if you ever see this video, maybe we can add a cat connection to this track rig. Yeah, it's a powerful tool. Let's just add, you know, one more plugin on it. Let's hit lights real quick. What we're doing on stage is we have these, I think they're OSPK or OSK strobe lights. We have 4 of those. You only see 2 right now, but we have 4 of those. We have 2 of these Sheds Beam 275 watt lights, beam lights. Have 2 of those. Those are they work really well for us. We have 3, I think JSW or JWS web lights from Sheds. We have 3 of those. The reason we decided to go with Sheds over a nicer company called Chevet or something like that. The first day we got these lights, I bought these off of Facebook Marketplace. The reason we went with Sheds is because I was like, hey, we need lights, but we also don't want to spend too much money, because what happens if somebody drops it? The first day we have these lights, somebody came to me and they were like, hey, I dropped one of the lights and broke the handle. I was like, okay, that sucks, but it's not too bad. I'm not too stressed because we didn't pay nowhere near the full price for those, and they're cheap. Granted, we want to steward what we have well, and we want to be careful with it, but that's why we got these lights. I'm super happy we got these lights, and they honestly work really well. Haven't had any problems out of them. We've been using them for almost a year now. Haven't had any problems.
Yeah, gear takes abuse in a church plant setup environment. I did it for 3 years at Mission Lakewood Church. We woke up at like 5:30 in the morning. We're like barely awake trying to set up a full AVL system. So I get it. If someone makes a mistake and drops a light, it happens.
And so that's why I did this. You can see the handle is broken on this one, and this one. And so again, you guys figure out I think honestly, to get the right tech for your church, hear your pastor's heart, hear your pastor's vision. What's the vision of the church? And that's how you decide what you need to get. So no, none of this stuff is necessary. The LED wall's not necessary. The lights aren't necessary. But hear your pastor's heart, hear your pastor's vision, and go from there. But for us, this was something that we wanted to do. And so we just thought the best way to do it, let's find some cheap lights that work really well, that won't break the bank, that we can replace if somebody breaks them. And these are the lights that we decided to go with, and they work really well for us. Over here, hidden behind this Christmas tree, we have the Antari Z350 series hazer.
That's a fog machine, Karezz, not a hazer.
We love this thing. It's worked really well for us. It's a horse. We haven't had any problems with it. It disperses well. It has a fan of its own on there. We also have another fan. I think our drummer stole it, but we have another fan for that to just kind of help it spread a little bit. And that's what we're using for haze. Let's talk PA system. So for PA system, we're using the RCF NX915A tops. We have... Dude,
is that a sticker? You take the sticker off the front of the speaker.
2 of those on left and right of the house. You can see that one right there. Then we have this one here. We have this little extension pole that screws into the RCF sub. And then this sub is the 9004 AS, I think. Yep, RCF 9004 AS sub. This is an 18-inch cab. It's really nice. We love it. We love this thing. It's actually really good. I personally want another sub to kind of give us a little bit more low end, and then maybe some front fills at the front of our stage over here. And so, yeah, that we like this system. It's really good. I would like another top, maybe another sub or a front fill, something just to give us a little bit more kind of low end, but also to some kind of feel in our center. But it's really not that bad. My pastor sits in the center every single Sunday, and he said he loves it, so it sounds good.
Yeah, I think that the seats are far enough back here where they're getting enough audio probably from the main left-right speakers. I don't think you need front fills. Subwoofers, yeah, you're probably not feeling as much, especially in the center of the room. Those subs are really pushing most of the energy like straight in front of them. So when subs are on the ground, they're not super efficient in dispersing audio, the energy evenly around the room or the bass frequencies. So you could add like 2 more subs here in the center. It might be kind of hard though. You have to figure out how to fit them underneath this little platform you've got going here.
One more thing that I would mention about your PA system for your church plant. You need to think through whether you want a passive or active system. I'll let you do the research on what a passive versus the active system is.
Passive means the amps are racked somewhere else. The amps aren't in the speakers. Active are the amps are inside of the speaker.
But we decided to go with the active system because we didn't have enough room in our rack over here to get like an amplifier and stuff like that. And so
it depends which amplifiers you get. Like a lot of the pretty powerful amplifiers we've been speccing are like 1 rack space. So you have a couple spaces. You could put them in there. You also could strategically move some of this equipment maybe to your front of house rack that's really empty. You could put maybe the microphones or the in-ears there. Remember, your SQ5 has quite a bit of analog inputs in it. So you have ins and outs on that console too. Maybe just move your wireless mics to the front of house rack to free up space here, and you could put things in here like amplifiers, but you already have speakers so with amplifiers in them, so no need to get that.
Okay, let's just go ahead and get an active system. And so both of our tops and bottoms are active, which means they just go straight from the cab into the wall. And so we made sure that these were on separate circuits, and so we're not going to blow any power or anything like that. But yeah, think through that. Think through how are you gonna be in a permanent situation where the school or the building that you're leasing are gonna let you permanently hang your PA system, or are they saying, hey, you have to take this out every week because we need the room every week? So think through that. That's another thing that we had to think through. Just think through passive versus active system for your church. Honestly, for a church plant, if your school is not letting you hang it, I would just 100% go for active. It's going to be easier. You're not going to have any problems with it. It's going to be really easy.
So I would push back on that a little bit. After being in a church plant for 3 years and we had active speakers like this, if you go with passive, what's nice is you're just connecting 1 speaker cable from the amps in the rack to the speaker. The amps supply that power over the speaker cable to those speakers. Whereas here, you're having to get 1, 2, 3, 4 power IEC cables to plug into those circuits that you have on the wall right there, where if you racked your amps, you'd have to make sure your amp rack does have sufficient power coming from, ideally, I bet for a system like this, if you could get like 2 20 amp circuits that are separate, that could easily power your amps and all the mics that you have in there and your processor with no problem. And then setting up the speakers, it will be much cleaner because you just don't have as much cables going like to the wall outlets.
Just make sure you have sufficient power for it. All right, for our face lights, we're using these Global Truss crank stands, and they go up to some truss we have here. Sorry. And then they're going to these.
That is a large truss.
Relax 400 watt zoom lights. And so we had some ellipse order lights, but our pastor didn't like the warmness of them. So we got rid of those. And now we have these Emerlax 400 watt zoom lights. And we love them. I really would like to get 2 more just to get some better coverage on the stage. And so maybe have 2 more, and that'll give us 6 lights. But right now, this works really well for us. The Christmas service was actually our first time doing this truss. We were actually blessed with a local church here in town being willing to give us some truss. And so that's what we're doing for face lighting. Again, those are the Emerlax 400 watt zoom lights. I'll put a link to those in the descriptions. All right, for lighting control, we are using, as you can tell, we're using Light Key. We love Light Key. It's super simple, easy for volunteers to run. What we have here, and maybe I'll do an in-depth video on our Light Key setup, but I have our service flow here at the top. So song 1, welcome, song 2, 3, sermon, song 4, baptism, and stuff like that. So all of our different service cues are in here. But then I have just some different effects and stuff like that we can do with our different lights. And the way we're controlling that.
That's why I love Lightkey. You can customize it, but it's also very simple. You could explain that to a volunteer like what he just did in about 15 seconds.
As with this Intech DMX USB Pro. I really want to get one of the ones that have the 2 universe on this. But as you guys know, those are crazy expensive. So I think I'm going to go with one of the, what company makes Onyx?
Obsidian.
Get the name of it off the top of my head, but they have some DMX or some USB to DMX converters that are really nice. I think they're actually Ethernet, but they're really nice. So I think I want to switch to those one day. But for now, we're only using one universe, and this works really well for us. And then we're controlling that as well with Ableton sometimes with ProPresenter, or sometimes we'll have somebody physically running it. And so that is our lighting control. Okay, so let's talk about Video World. Right here, what you see is this is our live stream card. Sorry about the mess again. We set up.
And I'm seeing lots of rack space here as well. So remember, try to use rack space. You don't have to put all the new expensive gear in there, but just you can use it for storage, for organizing things. Even if you're getting shelves and a bunch of Velcro, it can just kind of really pin stuff down nice and clean.
We set up each week and then we tear down. We should learn to be a little bit more clean. But this is our live stream rack. We'll start from the bottom and go straight to the top. That way you guys can see the full setup here. So one thing we decided to do is we decided to get this SDI patch bay. If you've worked with the ATEM switches at all, you know how small the SDI connections are on the back, and so it's hard to get your hands in there if you have big hands. And so I didn't want our team fighting with that every week, wasting time. And so what we did was we bought this SDI patch bay. I forget how many this is, but we bought this SDI patch bay. And then we created these little short SDI cables. And so 2 of these go to our Hollyland, what are these? The Hollyland wireless transmitter. These are the Mars 4K. I would not recommend these. I'm probably going to update. We're going to upgrade in the new year to some zero latency, but that's what we use right now. So these 2 SDI cables go to our mobile cams, and then this cable right here, SDI1, goes to our main tracking cam, and then our output section is over here on the right. And so they come over here, they plug these short SDI cables in really fast, and then everything's already routed up to the ATEM switcher.
So you're really on the right track here. I love these custom panels here. You can put whatever connectors you want in there. We really like using the products at Elite Core, where you can actually customize the panels that you want to build. So you can put XLR connectors in here. You could put data connectors, video connectors. And if I could go back in time, when I was a church plant, I would have utilized this a whole lot more, so that when you're looking at a rack like this, everything can be integrated nice and tightly within the rack between your network switches and your video and your audio inputs and outputs. And then on the outside of the rack, maybe you're just trunking the racks together with 1 or 2 cables. Like you have one network cable that's going to go from the front of house network switch that trunks to the network switch in this rack. And then again, if you're using Dante and AVL adapters, you're actually probably going to be able to eliminate some of these other analog connector plates out here, because nobody's ever going to actually have to touch that. As long as everything's integrated into the network with patch cables and switches, it's just always going to be plugged in, and then you're just kind of trunking your various racks together when you fire everything up.
And so that's a cool tip. That's something I would recommend you do if you are in a portable situation. If you come up, we have our 1/4 inch or TRS little patch bay here for our audio. The original plan was just come straight from the soundboard, or come from the front of the soundboard with our cables. But then I realized I was like, I could just plug straight into the back of the Constellation switcher. It was, I don't know. Don't judge me. It was a bad judgment call, but it's too late now. We have it. So we just keep it like this, and it works really well. So, but what happens is our audio comes from our interface into this, and out of the back of this, it goes into the Constellation. And so, as I've said already multiple times, our switcher is the ATEM 1ME Constellation HD switcher. That's what we're using for our switcher. And then we have our Furman interface, our Furman power thing here. And then if you come up, we have our ATEM computer that's running the ATEM software and the companion software for our Stream Deck. And then we're switching cameras with our Stream Deck here. And then over here, we have our multi-view. I'll walk you guys through this one more time. We have audio coming in from the USB cable. We are going to upgrade to Dante soon, but right now audio is coming in through the USB cable into Ableton, out of Ableton to our Scarlett interface to those TRS cables back into the ATEM switcher. And so all of the audio and the video gets put into the ATEM switcher, and then it comes out of program output on our SCA patch bay. And that goes to our Deck Link Quad 2 over here. And so that's our input. It goes into, I think, 4. And so our Deck Link Quad 2 takes the input 4 and that sends it back into ProPresenter. And that's how we get our video feed and audio feed for Livestream.
So with this whole setup with the computer graphics machine here in this Mac Mini, I would put this in the Video World rack and put the Deck Link Quad over there as well. I would get a $200 KVM, and then you can get this computer and the Deck Link. They can just live in the video rack, and all those video connections and the computer connections, they can all pretty much stay the same. And then you just have like a one data connection that's going to be your KVM to this little workstation he's got right here.
And so that's what we're doing for Livestream. All right, let's talk camera. So we don't have these set up right now because we just took them down. We're able to leave our stuff up this week only, but we took down the cameras just to be safe. So for our main tracking cam, we're using the Blackmagic Studio Camera 6K Pro with a Canon 70-200 lens. And then for our mobile cams, we're using two Blackmagic Pocket 6K G2s. One lens is a Canon 24-70. Yep, Canon 24-70. And then we have a Sigma 18-35 mil as well. I like for both of those to be 24-70s, maybe a 70-200. But that's what we're using right now. And honestly, we love the Blackmagic setup. It was a little bit more pricey, but we have a creative team here, and so we had Sony A7 IIIs. They needed cameras. Then we were looking at buying new cameras for the photography team. And so then the conversation came up. It was like, okay, hey, let's let the photography team have these cameras. We'll go ahead and buy cameras specifically for Livestream. And so again, that's what we're using. This may not be the setup for your situation, but we love this setup and it's been great for us. Luckily, I have a pastor who has a big heart for the live stream, for the live streaming. He has a big heart for creative, and so I'm just blessed. And so yeah, but this is our camera setup right now. And then for tripod, we're using this newer tripod stand. Honestly, man, this thing is really sturdy. I think it cost me $150 or something like that. This is the specific model. I think it cost me $150 or something like that, but it's really sturdy. We haven't had any problems with it. I am going to extend these tripod arms a little bit. They're a little too short, but this is our tripod stand that we are using. Then let me walk you guys through, again, as I mentioned, we have two of these Hollyland Mars 4K wireless transmitters. I want to upgrade these to some zero latencies. These have some real problems with latency. I bought these because I don't remember how much they cost. I think we got them on sale or something. But I bought these. I was like, hey, these will be good for now. We'll start with these. But I didn't realize how bad the latency was going to be. I don't have the exact milliseconds or frames, but
yeah, they have 66 milliseconds of latency, which that's a lot. That's going to be noticeable for people who are trying to like compare the cameras coming in. It's going to cause issues with audio sync as well. These transmitters are handy for other applications where, let's say you want to get video from a computer to maybe a confidence monitor somewhere, or like if your pastor wants to have a TV on stage to show slides. Latency for things like that, not a big deal. But when you're trying to run cameras at the same time and sync it with audio, that's where these high latency transmitters are going to be an issue. You're probably going to want to look into a more premium option with the Teradek transmitters. Those are the ones that are going to have a lot less latency. Maybe Hollyland makes some lower latency ones, but yeah, if you're trying to really transmit good video with low latency, look into Teradek.
It's pretty bad. So we're going to upgrade those probably soon. Let's talk through headsets. So we're using the Hollyland, I think C1 Pro series. We have three headsets, and then we have our main headset. And so the Hollyland C1 Pro headsets, that's what we're using for comms. And we really like it. We haven't had any problems with it. Let's talk about our TV cart here. So this is a Gator Lift 65 TV cart. We love this thing. It's a 65-inch TV cart. It's got little hydraulics here. We're able to press this red lever in, and then we just push down. And then that's our TV cart. We really do like it. The only thing I don't like about this thing is the price, first of all, and these little screws they have here. It's not very sturdy. Like, we have to check these like every Sunday because we're just afraid it's going to fall or something. I think it's important to say we didn't pay for this. This was donated to us by another church plant in town, but it's pretty pricey. But honestly, it's a really great cart. Instead of buying another cart like we did back here in the back, what I opted to do was take the top of this cart and then use that as the table for our ProPresenter and lighting computer. And so that's what we're doing right there. So that's our setup. Got this from a company in China, a local church that we know and we're friends with. They're like, hey, we got our LED wall from these people. Y'all should check them out. I haven't had too many problems with it. The only problem is when you're working with people that have never worked with LED walls before, you got volunteers, we get stuff like this, which I think is inevitable for a portable church. I feel like it's gonna happen no matter what. And so we have like spots all over the LED wall that are missing pieces.
The little pixels just went out, and that's common whether it's portable, whether it's a normal like stationary LED wall. Probably with lower quality walls, they're going to go out a lot quicker, have less reliability to them. But even for nicer LED walls like altitude LED walls, we always ship our panels with extra modules, because that happens where you'll have a few lemon pixels that show up within the first few months. You can hot swap those modules yourself in like 30 seconds, and then you ship those modules that have to be repaired to Altitude LED. We'll get them fixed and send it back to you, so you'll always have a fresh stock. And you want to have modules that are from the same batch of your original LED wall purchase, so whenever you have to replace them, they all look the same and consistent.
Also, too, we had a hard time just getting a good picture on it. Everything felt stretched. And so what we did was, actually one of our pastor's friends were in town. And so he was like, oh, what if we just shot it up and we just use like half of the wall and not the bottom of the wall. And so he started pressing buttons on our Novastar, and voila, we have this. And so now we're using this. We just got blessed with a lot of trust from a local church here in town. And so what we're going to be doing soon is hanging this up on truss, actually. And then right now, I think this is 4x5, and then we're going to be doing, when we hang it on LED or we hang it on truss, we're going to be going 3x6. And so it's also kind of annoying because they sold us like a 20-piece LED wall. I was kind of like, come on, bro. And so we'll have 2 extra panels. But yeah, so I mean, it's not the best LED wall in the whole world, but it hasn't failed us yet. You got to go around Christmas trees. Hasn't failed us yet. And we're using this system, which I don't like. And so that's why we're hoping to get the truss rolling here soon. That way we can get a little bit more stability over the wall, and we can make it a little bit wider. So yeah, that's our LED wall, and it has our name on it. Come on, Orbit Church, baby, let's go.
Yeah, if you have a truss and then you get a fly bar, it probably would be quicker and more efficient than having to set up the ground support every single week. And that ground support does look a little shady. Okay, so thank you so much, Karezz, for the tour of your setup here. And yeah, to kind of sum up my ideas of how could you guys make your lives a lot easier setting up and tearing down every week. My first big tip is to try to utilize the rack space that you have available, especially at front of house and in your video world rack setup. And sometimes that means you can get the nice Sonnet rack mount chassis for computers and the PCIe cards. But in this case, you could also just get a 2 or 4U rack shelves and get a lot of Velcro and then just Velcro stuff down in that rack so you know it's not gonna jostle around and go anywhere. That's the more budget-friendly way of going about it. The other big recommendation I have is getting a UniFi router. So I would get the UniFi. I like the Dream Machine Pro. It's definitely more expensive, but it is rack mountable already. They do make the smaller, less expensive gateways, but since I want you to rely more on Dante audio, I think it's better to have the pro level switches and routers because they have the Pro AV feature built into the manual configuration on those switches. So the UniFi Dream Machine Pro, maybe for your video world, get a 24 port UniFi switch, and then for your front of house as well as your stage rack, you could probably be fine with an 8 port Pro switch. I think just adding those switches and that network setup to this is really going to give you a lot of flexibility to clean up your audio routing a ton with Dante, and you'll be able to just more tightly integrate things. And like I said, if you use some of those connector panels on your racks with RJ45 jacks, you can just plug into a jack to trunk the racks together, and it'll just really clean up the cabling. I think from front of house to your stage, you should only have S-Link, a network cable, and one video cable pretty much, and that's about it. Should be really clean setup of cables going to and from there. And then going from front of house to your video world rack, just having one network connection should be able to carry a lot of what you need for Dante audio for your broadcast mix and any control that you need over the network to those workstations. Oh, like I said too, the other network cable would be the KVM that goes from your video world to right here where your ProPresenter computer is. The other thing too, I would recommend just putting LightKey on the same computer as ProPresenter. Maybe you do have some operators who really want to operate lights separately. That's fine. You could maybe even look into, having maybe a separate MIDI controller for it and a second monitor for the computer that runs ProPresenter and LightKey, but you could get rid of like the second laptop here because in my opinion, LightKey would run fine on this Mac Mini and it could further streamline the setup, and that's one less computer that you have to have back here. I think you guys are doing a great job, Karezz. Don't hesitate to reach out to us at Churchfront. I think we were already talking about getting you set up with a Dante card here pretty soon. If you're watching this video and you would like some design advice on your next gear upgrade at your church, go to churchfront.com and sign up for the Churchfront Premium membership. When you sign up for that membership, you get access to the Churchfront Express Design service where we can actually look at your situation and give you custom advice, kind of like what I did in this video on the different pieces of gear that can really move things forward for your worship and production ministry. So go to churchfront.com to learn more and sign up today.